Vice President Xi Jinping has arrived in Washington and will be meeting with some state leaders, President Obama as well. What are the key issues that you think will be tackled as they meet with the man who is expected to be the next leader of China?
Well, I think there's going to be a certain amount of getting to know you. Obviously important to try and develop a rapport with someone who's going to be a key player in the bilateral relationship. But beyond that, in an election year and with unemployment in the US still very high, I think there's going to be pressure on the Obama administration to demonstrate some economic wins on things like the exchange rate, things like market openness, things like protection of intellectual property.
And Tom, there have been some tensions between the U.S. and China, especially over, exactly how they're moderating their currency. Is that going to be an issue?
I think it is going to be an issue. I don't think the Obama administration is going to change their position on this. The difficulty, though, is that some of the key evidence for the undervaluation of the yuan has really started to disappear. For years, the US has pointed to China's enormous current account surplus, its enormous imbalance in trade with the rest of the world, as the main evidence that the yuan is undervalued. But in the last few years, and especially in 2011, China's current account surplus has really disappeared. That really kicks the ground out from underneath US argument on the exchange rate.
And at the same time, this meeting is sort of a balancing act in diplomacy. Other issues that are on the table are China's close ties to Iran, and also a lot of demonstrations I know in Washington about Tibet right now. So how do you expect the two to meet and come together on any of these issues during this meeting?
Well, I think the challenge for U.S. administrations is really to try and do multiple things at the same time. They need to speak to US values on human rights. They need China's cooperation on international security issues in North Korea, in Iran, and they need to try and get progress from China on things like the exchange rate. In the past, the evidence seems to suggest that economic issues and security issues have started to take precedence over concerns about human rights, but now with Tibet bubbling to the surface, it's going to be difficult for Obama to keep all of those different balls in the air.
Yeah, and Tom, all the more important because China is, of course, our biggest investor. Essentially, they own more treasury notes than basically anybody out there. What kind of a message does Obama send to them?
Well, my view is that the risk to the US from China's massive investment in US treasuries is overstated. In fact, China really has very little choice but to continue investing in US treasuries. If it started selling, it could very well trigger a crisis in which China would be one of the main losers. So I don't really hold the view that China's massive investment in US treasuries is a kind of stick which Beijing can use to beat Washington with.